The ancient Greek philosopher Epicurus observed something profoundly troubling about human nature when he declared, "This too is one of the evils of foolishness. It is always beginning to live." These words, penned over 2,000 years ago, cut through the centuries to expose a fundamental flaw in how we approach our existence. We are perpetually standing at the threshold of change, forever promising ourselves that transformation begins tomorrow, next week, next month, or in the coming year. We are a species of eternal beginners, constantly positioning ourselves at the starting line, but rarely completing the race. This is not merely procrastination, though procrastination is certainly part of it. This is something deeper, more insidious, and far more damaging to the human spirit. It is the delusion that we can wall off our failures, quarantine our mistakes to specific days or years, and emerge reborn with a clean slate when the calendar turns. It is the fantasy that change happens in dramatic revolutionary moments rather than through the quiet accumulation of present moment decisions. It is the lie we tell ourselves that allows us to maintain the comforting illusion of future transformation while avoiding the uncomfortable work of present action. Consider how this manifests in your own life. How many times have you uttered some version of these words, "Starting Monday, I'm going to," or "This year is going to be different because," or "Once this is over, I'll finally." These phrases are the linguistic fingerprints of the perpetual beginner, the person who is always about to live, but never quite living. They reveal our deep-seated belief that life exists in some future moment when conditions will be perfect, when we will be perfect, when everything will finally align and our true existence can commence. But life is not waiting for us in some future moment. Life is happening now, in this breath, in this heartbeat, in this singular, irreplaceable instant that we call the present. And every moment we spend preparing to begin is a moment we are not living. The tyranny of tomorrow. Why fresh starts fail. We are seduced by the mythology of the fresh start. There is something psychologically compelling about the idea of a clean break from our past failures, a line of demarcation that separates the flawed person we were from the perfected person we will become. This is why New Year's resolutions are so popular despite their abysmal success rate. This is why we tell ourselves, "I'll start Monday," even though Monday has no magical properties that Tuesday lacks. This is why we believe that a new job, a new relationship, or a new city will transform us into someone we've been unable to become where we are. The fresh start carries within it an implicit promise that we can leave behind everything we dislike about ourselves and emerge as someone entirely new. It suggests that our failures are not intrinsic to who we are, but rather tied to a particular time and place that we can escape. In this narrative, we are not the problem, our circumstances are. Change the circumstances, change the calendar, and we change ourselves. But this is a fundamental misunderstanding of how human transformation works. When we wake up on that Monday morning, that first day of the new year, that first day at the new job, we are still ourselves. We carry with us every habit, every pattern of thought, every unconscious response that we had the day before. The calendar has changed, but we have not. And so inevitably we stumble, we slip back into old patterns, we face a familiar temptation and respond in a familiar way. And then with devastating swiftness, the entire edifice of our new beginning collapses. Here is where the real damage occurs. When we structure our lives around these dramatic fresh starts, we create a binary system of success and failure that admits no middle ground. Either we maintain our streak of perfection, or we have failed completely. Either we are the new person we promised to become, or we are still the old person we promised to leave behind. There is no room in this system for the messy reality of gradual progress, for the 2 steps forward, 1 step back nature of genuine growth. So when we slip, and we will slip because we are human and perfection is not a human quality, we don't treat it as a minor setback on a longer journey. We treat it as total failure. We say to ourselves, well, I've already broken my diet, so I might as well eat whatever I want for the rest of the day. Or, I've already missed my workout, so this week is shot, I'll start fresh next Monday. Or, I've already looked at my phone first thing in the morning, so I've failed at my digital detox. I'll try again next month. Do you see the insanity of this logic? Do you see how we take a small deviation and use it as permission for complete abandonment? This is not rational behavior. This is not how someone who genuinely wants to change would act. This is the behavior of someone who is more committed to the story of transformation than to the reality of it. The story requires a dramatic arc, the fallen state, the moment of realization, the heroic decision to change, and the transformed existence. But reality offers something much less cinematic and much more difficult, the endless succession of small choices, each one barely distinguishable from the last, each one seeming insignificant in isolation, but each one contributing to the person we are becoming. The Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius understood this deeply when he wrote about making the best move possible in each moment. He didn't write about making the perfect move or about achieving a flawless streak. He wrote about doing the best with what you have where you are right now. This is a profoundly different orientation toward change. It acknowledges that you will make mistakes, that you will fall short, that you will sometimes choose poorly. But it insists that this does not nullify everything else. It insists that the next moment is still available to you, that the next choice is still yours to make. When you eat something you didn't plan to eat, the best move possible is not to use that as license to abandon all restraint for the rest of the day. The best move possible is to make your next meal a healthy one. When you lose your temper with your child, the best move possible is not to conclude that you're a terrible parent and wallow in guilt. The best move possible is to apologize, to repair the connection, to do better in the next interaction. When you waste an hour on social media, the best move possible is not to declare the entire day ruined. The best move possible is to close the app and do something meaningful with the next hour. This is the way forward, but it requires us to abandon the mythology of the fresh start. It requires us to give up the story of dramatic transformation that our culture has sold us through countless movies, books, and motivational speeches. It requires us to accept that becoming who we want to be is not a singular event, but an ongoing process, not a destination we arrive at, but a direction we travel in. The continuity of becoming, every challenge brings us closer. If we abandon the model of discrete, fresh starts, what do we replace it with? The answer is deceptively simple. Continuity. Instead of viewing our lives as a series of failed attempts separated by promises to do better, we must learn to see our lives as a single continuous journey in which every moment, including the moments we label as failures, contributes to our growth. This requires a fundamental reframing of what failure means. In the Fresh Start model, failure is absolute. You either maintain your commitment or you don't. You either are the new person or you're still the old one. But in the continuity model, failure is simply information. It tells you something about yourself, about your patterns, about what triggers you, about where you need support or strategies or self-compassion. Consider someone trying to overcome an addiction. In the Fresh Start model, any use of the substance is complete failure, requiring them to reset their sobriety date and begin again. This model has value in some contexts, particularly in communities where the symbolism of continuous sobriety is important for group cohesion and individual commitment. But it also has a dark side. It can lead people who have a moment of weakness to conclude that they've already failed, so they might as well fully relapse. In the continuity model, that moment of weakness is still a setback, still something to take seriously, but it doesn't erase everything that came before. If someone has been sober for 6 months and then uses once, they haven't returned to being the person they were 6 months ago. They are someone who has practiced being sober for 6 months. They have strengthened neural pathways of restraint. They have developed coping mechanisms. They have proven to themselves that they can live without the substance. All of that remains true even after the slip. This is what I mean when I say that even when we fail a challenge, we advance toward advancement. Every time we face a temptation, we are training ourselves. If we resist, wonderful, we've strengthened our capacity for resistance. If we don't resist, we haven't strengthened it as much as we could have, but we've still practiced being aware of the temptation. We've still had the opportunity to notice what thoughts and feelings preceded the choice. We've still gathered information about ourselves. Think of it like working out. If you go to the gym planning to do 10 sets but only manage 7, you haven't failed. You've done 7 sets. Those 7 sets made you stronger. They count. The fact that you didn't achieve your ideal outcome doesn't mean you should skip the gym for the rest of the week because you've already failed. That would be absurd. You would recognize that 7 sets is better than 0 sets, and that the next time you go to the gym, you have another opportunity to reach for 10. Why don't we apply this same logic to every other area of our lives? Why do we treat moral and behavioral goals with such absolutism when we would never treat physical goals that way? The answer, I think, is that we have tied our goals to our identity in an unhealthy way. When we fail at the gym, we don't think we are a failure as a person, but when we fail at our diet or our temper or our work ethic, we do. We make it mean something about who we fundamentally are, rather than simply being information about what we did in a particular moment. This brings us to perhaps the most liberating insight of the continuity model. You don't need to become a different person. You need to make different choices repeatedly over time. The person you want to be is not some distant, perfected version of yourself that you'll suddenly transform into when you finally get it right. The person you want to be is who you are right now when you make the choice you want to make. Every time you choose patience over anger, you are a patient person in that moment. Every time you choose health over convenience, you are a healthy person in that moment. Every time you choose integrity over expedience, you are a person of integrity in that moment. You don't need to wait until you've achieved some streak of consistency to claim those qualities. They are available to you right now, in this choice, and then in the next one, and then in the next one. This is why we must stop saying starting Monday or starting next year. When we say those things, we are saying that change exists in some future moment, and that who we are right now is fixed and unchangeable until that moment arrives. But the truth is precisely the opposite. Change only exists in the present moment, because the present moment is the only place where we can actually make different choices. The future never comes. It is always now, and it will always be now, and if you cannot change now, you cannot change at all. So instead of beginning anew, simply continue. Continue from wherever you are, with whatever you've done, carrying whatever you've learned. You are not starting over. You are not wiping the slate clean. You are adding to what you've built, even if what you've built includes some mistakes. The cathedral is not complete, but every stone you lay counts, including the ones you have to remove and replace because they weren't quite right. The present moment, the only arena of action. Here is a truth so obvious that we constantly forget it. Nothing is ever asked of you in the past or the future. Every challenge, every decision, every action only ever occurs in the present moment. The past is gone. You cannot change it. You cannot act in it. You cannot return to it. The future has not arrived. You cannot control it. You cannot guarantee it. You cannot live in it. There is only now, this moment, and then the next now, and then the next. And yet, what weighs on us in the present moment is almost never the present moment itself. It is the past or the future. It is our regrets, our resentments, our shame, our guilt about what has already happened. Or it is our anxieties, our worries, our fears, our catastrophic projections about what might happen. The actual immediate reality of the present moment is usually far more manageable than we think. Marcus Aurelius expressed this beautifully when he wrote, "Tell me, what in this present moment is so unbearable, and you will be ashamed of your answer." This is a practice worth adopting. The next time you feel overwhelmed, the next time you feel paralyzed by anxiety, or crushed by despair, stop and ask yourself, what in this exact moment, right now, is unbearable? Not what happened yesterday, not what might happen tomorrow, not the cumulative weight of all your problems stacked together, just this moment. What is actually wrong right now? Almost always the answer is nothing, or at least nothing that requires the level of distress you're experiencing. You might be uncomfortable, you might be bored, you might be facing something difficult, but difficult is not the same as unbearable, and uncomfortable is not the same as impossible. The present moment, experienced directly without the layering of past and future, is almost always something you can handle. You are breathing, your heart is beating, you are here. Whatever needs to happen in this moment, this single, discrete moment, is within your capacity, or it wouldn't be happening to you right now. But we don't experience life this way. We experience life as if we must deal with everything simultaneously. We must deal with what happened last year and what might happen next year and what's happening right now, all at once, all the time. No wonder we feel overwhelmed. We are trying to live in 3 different time periods simultaneously, and it's tearing us apart. This is particularly true when we face temptation or challenge. Imagine you're trying to lose weight and someone offers you a piece of cake at a party. In that moment, you're not just dealing with the present reality of the cake. You're dealing with every past failure at dieting. You're thinking about all the times you've given in before, all the progress you've lost, all the disappointment you've felt, and you're projecting into the future. If you eat this cake, you'll have failed again. You'll never lose weight. You'll always be stuck in this cycle. You'll never have the body you want. You'll die alone and unhappy. All of that is happening in your mind while someone is simply holding out a plate with a piece of cake on it. The actual present moment challenge is quite simple. Do you want to eat this cake or not? Do you want the momentary pleasure of the taste, or do you want the satisfaction of maintaining your commitment? That's it. That's the only question that exists in reality. Everything else is a story you're telling yourself, a story that makes the simple choice feel impossibly heavy. Now, I'm not suggesting that the past and future are irrelevant. Of course, your past experiences inform your present choices. Of course, you should consider future consequences. But there's a difference between learning from the past and being imprisoned by it, between planning for the future and being terrorized by it. Learning from the past means recognizing patterns and making different choices based on that recognition. Being imprisoned by the past means allowing old failures to convince you that new success is impossible, allowing old shame to prevent you from trying again, allowing old identities to limit who you can become. Planning for the future means considering the long-term consequences of your actions and making choices that serve your values and goals. Being terrorized by the future means catastrophizing about everything that could go wrong, rehearsing disasters that haven't happened, and letting fear paralyze you into inaction. The Stoics were masterful at maintaining this balance. They engaged in what they called premeditation of adversity, imagining potential future challenges so they could prepare for them mentally and practically. But they didn't confuse preparation with worry. Once they had prepared as much as they could, they focused their attention on what they could control in the present moment and accepted that the future would unfold as it would. This is the paradox. Planning for the future is a present moment activity. Learning from the past is a present moment activity. Everything you do now. You cannot do it at any other time. So the question is, are you using the present moment to torture yourself with regrets and anxieties, or are you using it to take the actions that will create the future you want? The weight of identity. Who are you trying to be? Before we go further, we need to address a crucial question. Are the goals you're struggling to achieve actually your goals? Or are they someone else's goals that you've internalized? Are they goals that emerged from your authentic values and desires, or are they goals you think you should have? This matters enormously, because if you're trying to achieve goals that don't actually align with who you are and what you truly value, your inner resistance isn't a character flaw, it's wisdom. Your procrastination isn't laziness, it's self-protection. Your repeated failures aren't evidence of weakness, they're evidence that something is wrong with the goal itself. Think about all the goals you've set for yourself. How many of them came from trying to be a good husband, wife, parent, employee, friend, trying to impress specific people or people in general, trying to live up to an image you created of yourself as a teenager, trying to prove something to someone from your past, trying to fulfill expectations that were placed on you by family or culture, trying to achieve markers of success that society says you should want? How much of your life are you spending trying to satisfy the fantasies of your 15-year-old self? How much energy are you expending trying to become the person you thought you would be, rather than discovering and becoming who you actually are? This is not a trivial question. Many of us carry around ambitions that we formed in childhood or adolescence when our understanding of the world was limited and our sense of self was still forming. We decided we wanted to be rich, or famous, or powerful, or admired. We decided we wanted a certain kind of career, a certain kind of body, a certain kind of life. And then we spent decades chasing these things, rarely stopping to ask whether we still want them, whether they still make sense for who we've become, whether they actually bring us joy or just temporary satisfaction. The Stoics were deeply concerned with this problem. They recognized that most of what we think we want is actually what we've been conditioned to want by our upbringing, our culture, our peers. They called these preferred indifference. Things that it's fine to pursue if they come easily, but not worth sacrificing your peace of mind or integrity to obtain. True goods in Stoic philosophy were internal: wisdom, justice, courage, self-discipline. These were goods because they were entirely within your control, because they could never be taken from you, and because they were intrinsically valuable regardless of external circumstances. Everything else, wealth, status, even health and life itself, was ultimately indifferent, preferable to their opposites certainly, but not essential to living well. This is a radical reframing. It suggests that most of what we're chasing doesn't actually matter in the way we think it does. It suggests that we're carrying around rocks in our pockets while trying to swim, weighing ourselves down with pursuits that don't serve us, that don't align with our deeper values, that don't contribute to our genuine well-being. And here's the thing. These misaligned goals don't just fail to serve us, they actively harm us. They fill our present moments with anxiety about whether we're progressing toward them fast enough. They fill our minds with regrets about not having achieved them already. They create artificial deadlines and arbitrary metrics that we then beat ourselves up for failing to meet. So before you commit to another round of trying harder, pushing more, disciplining yourself better, stop and examine the goal itself. Ask yourself, do I actually want this, or do I think I should want it? Does this goal serve who I am now, or who I was 10 years ago? Am I pursuing this because it aligns with my values, or because it impresses others? If I achieved this goal, would it actually make my life better? Or would it just give me a temporary sense of accomplishment before I moved on to chasing the next thing? What am I sacrificing in pursuit of this goal? Is it worth it? These are uncomfortable questions, because if you discover that you've been chasing the wrong goals, it means you've been spending your precious present moments, the only moments you have, on something that doesn't matter to you. That's a hard truth to face. But it's also liberating because it means you can stop. You can put down that particular rock. You can redirect your energy towards something that actually serves you. And sometimes the most important thing you can do is simply stop accumulating goals altogether. Stop trying to optimize yourself into some platonic ideal of human achievement. Stop treating yourself like a project that needs to be completed. Just be here, now, doing what needs to be done in this moment, not because it advances some grand plan, but because it's what's in front of you. The illusion of external obstacles. Look around you. Seriously, put down your phone or step away from your computer and look at your immediate physical environment. What is actually preventing you from making a different choice right now? What external force has you in its grip, making it impossible for you to act in accordance with your values? The answer, almost certainly, is nothing. Yes, you have responsibilities. Yes, you have constraints. Yes, you have been shaped by your circumstances in ways that make some choices easier and some harder. But in this exact moment, you have agency. You can choose what to think about. You can choose where to direct your attention. You can choose your next action. The world requires nothing of you. The universe has no expectations. God or nature or reality, or whatever term you prefer, is not judging you, is not keeping score, is not disappointed in your lack of progress. All of the requirements you feel pressing down on you, all of the obligations that seem to fill every moment of your day, all of the deadlines and expectations and standards, all of it is self-imposed. This is not to say that consequences don't exist. If you don't pay your bills, your electricity will be shut off. If you don't show up for work, you'll be fired. If you neglect your relationships, they'll deteriorate. These are real. But the meaning you assign to them, the emotional weight you give them, the way you let them dictate your internal state, that's self-imposed. You decided that you must achieve certain things by certain ages. You decided that failing to meet these deadlines means something about your worth as a person. You decided that other people's opinions of you matter more than your own peace of mind. You decided that external markers of success are what gives life meaning, and you can undecide all of it. This is both terrifying and liberating. It's terrifying because it means you can't blame your circumstances for your unhappiness. You can't point to external obstacles and say, "That's why I can't change." It means you are responsible for your own internal state, regardless of what's happening around you. But it's also profoundly liberating because it means you are not trapped. You are not at the mercy of external forces. You are not waiting for circumstances to change before you can begin living the life you want to live. You can begin right now in this moment by choosing to think differently, to respond differently, to be differently. The Stoics understood that while we cannot control external events, we can control our responses to them. We cannot control what happens to us, but we can control what we make it mean. We cannot control what others do, but we can control how we interpret their actions and whether we let those interpretations disturb our peace. This is not about denying reality or pretending that difficult things aren't difficult. It's about recognizing where your power actually lies. When something bad happens to you, when you lose your job, when a relationship ends, when you receive a difficult diagnosis, the event itself is neutral. It's just something that happened. The suffering comes from the story you tell yourself about it, the meaning you assign to it, the future you project based on it. Yes, losing your job means you need to find another source of income. That's a practical problem that requires practical solutions. But it doesn't mean you're a failure. It doesn't mean you're worthless. It doesn't mean your life is ruined. Those are interpretations, and interpretations are optional. This is where we must be very careful, because there's a toxic version of this idea that circulates in certain self-help spaces. It goes something like, you create your own reality, so if bad things are happening to you, it's because of your negative thoughts, or there are no victims, only volunteers. This is victim blaming dressed up as empowerment, and it's both cruel and false. We do not create external reality with our thoughts. Bad things happen to good people. People are victimized by others' malicious actions. Systemic injustice is real. Trauma is real. Acknowledging that you have control over your internal response to events is not the same as claiming that you caused those events or could have prevented them. The distinction is this: you are not responsible for what happens to you, but you are responsible for what you do with it. You did not choose to be traumatized, but you can choose whether that trauma becomes your identity. You did not choose to be treated unjustly, but you can choose whether to spend your present moments in rage about it or in action to change it. This leads us to one of the most important points. Your past did happen. The difficult, painful, unjust things that occurred are real. No one is asking you to pretend otherwise, but you must decide right now, in this present moment, whether those events will define your future. Will you be the person to whom those things happened, forever shaped and limited by them? Or will you be the person who had those experiences and chose to move forward anyway? The difference is subtle but crucial. In the first case, you are your past. In the second case, you have a past, but you are your present choices. The burden of victimhood, when identity becomes prison. Let me be very clear about something. Acknowledging that bad things happen to you is not the same as making those things your identity. Recognizing that you are harmed is not the same as building your entire self-concept around that harm. Speaking truthfully about injustice is not the same as using that injustice as a permanent excuse for inaction. There is a strange alchemy that happens with trauma and hardship. What begins as a genuine wound, deserving of compassion and care, can gradually transform into an identity, a narrative, a lens through which everything is viewed. The person who was victimized becomes, in their own mind and in their presentation to the world, a victim. Not someone who experienced victimization, that's past tense, something that happened, but a victim as a present tense state of being. Why does this happen? Often it's because the victim identity provides something valuable, an explanation for why life is hard, an excuse for not changing, a claim on other people's sympathy and accommodation, and most importantly, a way to make sense of pain that otherwise seems meaningless. If I am a victim, then my struggles are not my fault. If I am a victim, then people should cut me slack, should expect less of me, should treat me with special care. If I am a victim, then the world owes me something to make up for what was taken. If I am a victim, then my pain has a clear cause and a clear villain, rather than being the purposeless suffering that characterizes so much of human existence. These are powerful psychological rewards, and it's no surprise that people sometimes become attached to them. But there's a terrible price to pay for this identity. It sentences you to permanent limitation. If you are a victim, then you cannot be powerful. If you are a victim, then you cannot move forward. If you are a victim, then your past forever constrains your future. The Stoics would say you have taken an external event, something that happened to you, and turned it into an internal state, something that defines you. You have given power over your present and future to a past event that is over and done with. You have allowed someone else's past actions to determine your current state of mind and your future possibilities. And here's the cruelest irony. The person who harmed you is probably not spending their present moments thinking about you. They've moved on. They're living their life. Meanwhile, you're still giving them power over every moment of your existence by remaining defined by what they did. You've outlived the actual event by years or decades, but you're still trapped in it, still revolving around it, still organizing your life around its gravitational pull. The solution is not to pretend the harm didn't happen. The solution is not to forgive when forgiveness isn't possible or appropriate. The solution is not to excuse injustice or minimize pain. The solution is to refuse to let that event, that person, that circumstance continue to define you in the present moment. Someone came into my life and harmed me. That happened. It was real. It was wrong. I did not deserve it, and I will not give them one more moment of power over my life. I will not let them determine how I feel today. I will not let them limit what I can do tomorrow. They had their moment to harm me, and it's over. This moment belongs to me, and I will not surrender it to the past. This is not cold or unfeeling. This is self-preservation. This is reclaiming your power. This is recognizing that every moment you spend dwelling in past harm is a moment stolen from present possibility. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Today I escaped anxiety," or no, I discarded it because it was within me, in my own perceptions, not outside. The same is true of victimhood. You don't escape it. You discard it, because it's not a fact about the world, but a story you're telling yourself about the world. The multiplication of suffering, how we add to what happened. Here's a thought experiment. Imagine someone insults you. They say something cruel, unjust, or demeaning. The words take perhaps 10 seconds to say. They register in your consciousness, causing an immediate emotional reaction. That initial reaction, the shock, the hurt, the anger, might last a few minutes or a few hours. But what happens next? If you're like most people, you don't let it end there. You replay the insult in your mind. You tell other people about it. You imagine what you should have said in response. You construct elaborate scenarios where you get revenge or where the person realizes their mistake and apologizes. You lie awake at night, feeling the anger and hurt all over again. You think about it days, weeks, months, or even years later. What has happened? A 10-second event has been stretched into hours or days or years of suffering. And here's the crucial point. Most of that suffering is not from the event itself. Most of it is from your engagement with the memory of the event, your elaboration of the event, your decision to keep the event alive in your mind. The original insult was one thing, but your resentment of it, your rumination about it, your rage about it, your telling and retelling of it, that's another thing entirely. At some point, perhaps quite quickly, the majority of your suffering is self-generated. You have taken a small wound and made it a large one through your own mental activity. This is not to blame you for suffering. The initial pain was real and not your fault. But it is to point out that suffering has two components, the thing that happened and what you do with it afterward. The first is beyond your control, the second is entirely within it. The Stoics had a concept they called prohairesis, the sphere of choice, the domain of internal freedom. They argued that while external events might be beyond our control, our reactions to those events were entirely within it. They insisted that no one could make you feel anything without your cooperation, that your distress was not caused by events, but by your judgments about events. This seems obviously false at first glance. If someone harms you, aren't they causing your pain? But look more closely. The person said words. Those words traveled through air, vibrated your eardrum, were processed by your brain. So far, this is all mechanics, no suffering yet. The suffering comes when you interpret those sounds as meaningful, when you take them personally, when you conclude something about yourself or the other person based on them. None of that is automatic or inevitable. It feels automatic because it happens so fast and because you've practiced these interpretations for so long that they've become habitual. But they're still interpretations, still choices, still within your power to change. Imagine you speak only English and someone insults you in a language you don't understand. They're saying terrible things, but you don't know that. You just hear unfamiliar sounds. Are you hurt? No, because you haven't interpreted the sounds as meaningful, as directed at you, as saying something about your worth. The physical event, sound waves, is identical, but without the interpretation, there's no suffering. Now, I'm not suggesting you can simply decide not to understand English or not to feel hurt when someone insults you. Our interpretations and reactions are deeply ingrained, shaped by evolution and experience. But recognizing that they are interpretations, not facts, creates a small space of freedom. In that space, you can ask, do I need to keep carrying this? Do I need to keep giving this moment power over my present? Do I need to let this define me? Often we don't just carry around one incident, we carry hundreds or thousands of them. Every slight, every disappointment, every failure, every loss, we collect them all, add them together, and carry them with us at all times. We build an identity out of accumulated grievances. We become the sum of our wounds. And then we wonder why life feels so heavy, why every new challenge feels insurmountable. We're not just dealing with the present moment, we're dealing with the present moment plus every past moment we've refused to let go of. We're trying to move forward while dragging behind us a massive weight of unprocessed, unresolved, constantly rehearsed past suffering. The way out is not to deny or suppress, it's to process, to feel fully, to acknowledge, and then, crucially, to release, to let the past be past, to recognize that what happened then does not need to continue happening now unless you make it so. This is the ultimate form of personal power, the ability to stop adding to your own suffering, the ability to experience pain without compounding it, the ability to be harmed without making harm your identity, the ability to say, that happened and it hurt and now it's over. Today is not lost, the fallacy of the ruined day. Let's return to the diet example, because it illustrates perfectly how our all-or-nothing thinking sabotages us. You're trying to lose weight. You've committed to staying under a certain caloric limit. It's 11 a.m. and someone brings donuts to the office. You have one. You've now exceeded your planned calorie intake for the morning. At this point, a voice in your head says, well, you've already blown it. Today is lost. You might as well eat whatever you want for the rest of the day and start fresh tomorrow. Do you see the absurdity? You've consumed perhaps 300 extra calories. If you continue with your planned eating for the rest of the day, you'll still be only moderately over your goal. You'll still lose weight, just slightly slower. But instead, you use those 300 calories as permission to consume an extra 2,000 calories. You turn a small deviation into a major setback, and you do it deliberately, almost gleefully under the banner of, well, it's already ruined. What is actually being ruined? The day is not ruined. Your body does not distinguish between good days and bad days. Your body simply processes the total calories you consume over time. There is no metaphysical meaning to eating 1,800 calories on Tuesday versus 2,100. The only meaning is the one you assign, and the meaning you've assigned is toxic. You've decided that imperfection equals total failure, so you might as well fail completely. You've decided that once you've deviated from your plan, there's no point in salvaging anything from the rest of the day. You've decided that streaks are more important than overall patterns, that symbolic victories are more important than actual outcomes. This is the thinking of someone who cares more about the narrative of their diet than about actually losing weight. If you actually cared about losing weight, you would recognize that every choice matters independently. The donut you ate at 11 a.m. is in the past. It cannot be undone. The question is, what do you do at noon, and at 3 p.m., and at 7 p.m.? Each of these moments is a separate choice with its own consequences. But we don't think this way. We create these artificial containers called days or weeks or months, and then treat the container as the unit of success or failure, rather than treating each choice as its own unit. This is useful for creating accountability and tracking progress, but it becomes destructive when we use it to multiply our failures. The same pattern appears everywhere in life. You lose your temper with your child in the morning. Do you then decide the whole day is ruined and you might as well be irritable all day? You check social media first thing instead of meditating. Do you then abandon all intention for mindfulness for the rest of the day? You miss a deadline at work. Do you then stop trying to be productive because this week is shot? If this sounds ridiculous when stated plainly, that's because it is ridiculous, and yet we do it constantly. We take one moment of weakness and use it as permission for a dozen more. We fail in a small way and decide we might as well fail in a big way. We break our streak and conclude that the streak was the only thing that mattered, so there's no point in continuing. This is the perpetual beginner's mindset taken to its logical extreme. If the only thing that counts is the fresh start, the clean slate, the perfect streak, then any blemish destroys all value. The project of self-improvement is either flawless or worthless, with no middle ground. But real life is all middle ground. Real progress is messy, inconsistent, characterized by frequent setbacks and course corrections. Real change is not a straight line upward, but a noisy trend in the right direction, with plenty of backward steps along the way. What we need is the ability to zoom out and look at patterns rather than individual moments, while simultaneously zooming in and recognizing that each individual moment still matters. We need to hold both truths, that one donut doesn't ruin your overall diet, and that each choice to eat or not eat a donut is significant. That missing one workout doesn't undo all your progress, and that showing up today still matters. This is the wisdom of making the best move possible in each moment. You cannot undo the past move. You cannot guarantee the future moves. All you can do is make this move now the best one available to you given where you are. Sometimes the best move is the perfect one. You resist the temptation, you follow through on your commitment, you act in complete alignment with your values. Great. Sometimes the best move is imperfect, but acceptable. You give in to the temptation, but moderately, you partially follow through. You act in approximate alignment with your values. That's fine too. Sometimes the best move is damage control. You failed completely, but you can at least prevent it from cascading into further failures. All of these are better than declaring the day lost and abandoning all effort. All of these keep you in the game, keep you moving forward, keep you practicing the kinds of choices you want to make. And practice matters. Every time you face a challenge, whether you succeed or fail, you're training yourself. You're strengthening certain neural pathways and weakening others. You're becoming someone. The question is, who are you becoming? Are you becoming someone who gives up at the first sign of difficulty? Someone who uses any excuse to abandon their commitments? Someone for whom imperfection equals failure? Or are you becoming someone who keeps trying, who treats setbacks as information rather than identity, who finds a way forward no matter how many times they stumble? The redemption of now, this moment is all you need. Strip away all the complexity, all the philosophy, all the analysis, and you're left with something remarkably simple. Right now, in this moment, you can make a choice. You can choose what to think about. You can choose what to do. You can choose who to be. Not tomorrow, not next week. Not after you've prepared more, or felt more motivated, or waited for better circumstances. Now. This might seem obvious, but we spend most of our lives acting as if it's not true. We act as if change requires some special conditions that we're still waiting for. We act as if we need to feel ready before we can begin. We act as if there's a version of ourselves that exists in some future moment who will have the strength or wisdom or discipline that we currently lack. And once we become that person, then we can do what needs to be done. But that person doesn't exist. That future moment when everything clicks into place and change becomes easy, that never arrives. There is only this person, in this moment, with these circumstances, and the question is simply, what will you do? The Stoics had a practice they called living in accordance with nature. By this they didn't mean living in the wilderness or rejecting technology. They meant accepting reality as it is, rather than wishing it were different, and then acting appropriately based on that reality. This moment is what it is. You are who you are. The situation is what it is. Given all of that, what's the best move? Not the perfect move you wish you could make if you were a better person. Not the move you would make if circumstances were different. The best move available to you right now, as you are, where you are. This is profoundly liberating because it removes all the preconditions for action. You don't need to feel motivated. You don't need to feel confident. You don't need to feel ready. You just need to look at this moment and choose. Are you sitting on the couch scrolling on your phone when you meant to be working? The present moment offers you a choice. Keep scrolling or put down the phone. That's it. No need for grand declarations about never wasting time again. No need to hate yourself for how much time you've already wasted. Just this moment, this choice. Are you angry at your partner, mid-argument, feeling the urge to say something cruel? The present moment offers you a choice. Say the cruel thing or don't. Close your mouth. Take a breath. Walk away if you need to. The anger is there. You don't need to pretend it isn't. But the action is still your choice, and it exists only in this moment. Are you facing a challenging task that feels overwhelming? The present moment offers you a choice. Take the first small step or don't. You don't need to figure out the whole path forward. You don't need to solve the entire problem. You just need to do the next thing, whatever that is. Send the email, make the phone call, write the first sentence. The rest will come, or it won't. But all you have to do right now is this. This is how we must live, moment by moment, choice by choice, not worrying about maintaining streaks or living up to grand visions of ourselves, but simply making the best move we can in each present moment as it arises. And here's the beautiful thing: when you live this way, transformation happens naturally, not because you've white-knuckled your way to perfection, but because you've accumulated thousands of present moment choices that align with your values. Not because you've finally become a different person, but because you've repeatedly chosen to act like the person you want to be. The person you want to be is not far off in the future, waiting for you to finally get your act together. The person you want to be is who you are in this moment when you make the choice you want to make, and then in the next moment, and the next. You don't need to wait until you can do it perfectly or consistently. You just need to do it once, now, and then again, and then again. Each time is independent. Each time counts. Each time is an opportunity to practice being who you want to be. The only challenge is now, why tomorrow will not be easier. Here's a hard truth. If you can't do something now, you won't be able to do it tomorrow either. The challenge you're facing today will feel exactly the same when you face it tomorrow. It will not be easier. You will not be stronger. The circumstances will not be more favorable. This is not pessimism, it's realism. We tell ourselves that tomorrow will be different because it allows us to avoid the discomfort of the present moment. We convince ourselves that we just need a little more preparation, a little more motivation, a slightly better mood, and then we'll be able to do what needs to be done. But tomorrow you'll find another reason to wait. Tomorrow you'll feel slightly tired or slightly stressed or slightly uncertain, and those feelings will seem like perfectly valid reasons to wait until the day after tomorrow, and so on indefinitely until you die having never started. The challenge is always now, the difficulty is always now, the discomfort is always now. And your capacity to handle it is also now, not more, not less. But what you have right now is what you'll have tomorrow, because tomorrow is just another now. This is why the perpetual beginner never makes progress. They're waiting for a version of the challenge that feels doable, not recognizing that all challenges feel challenging regardless of when you face them. They're waiting to feel ready, not recognizing that no one ever feels ready. They're waiting for motivation to strike, not recognizing that motivation is often the result of action, not its prerequisite. The way forward is to face the challenge now, in this moment, without waiting for better conditions. Not because you feel capable, but because this is when the challenge is presenting itself. Not because it will be easy, but because it will never be easy. And delaying won't change that. Think about the thing you've been putting off, the conversation you need to have, the project you need to start, the habit you need to break, the truth you need to face. You've been telling yourself you'll deal with it soon. You've been waiting for the right time, the right mood, the right circumstances. But let me ask you, will the conversation be easier next week? Will the project be less daunting next month? Will breaking the habit hurt less next year? Will the truth be easier to face after more time has passed? If anything, these things become harder with delay. The conversation you need to have becomes more awkward as more time passes in avoidance. The project becomes more overwhelming as the deadline approaches. The habit becomes more entrenched with each day you don't address it. The truth becomes scarier as you build up more fear around facing it. So why wait? What are you actually gaining through delay except more anxiety, more guilt, more sense of failure for not having done it yet? The present moment is not a time to be gotten through so you can reach some better moment. The present moment is all there is. It is the only moment in which you can ever act. It is the only moment that ever asks anything of you. And what it asks is always doable, because if it weren't, it wouldn't be asking. Notice that last point carefully. The universe, reality, life. whatever you want to call it, never asks you for something you cannot do. It might ask you for something difficult, something uncomfortable, something you don't want to do, but it never asks for something impossible. The mere fact that you're facing a challenge means you have the capacity to face it. This doesn't mean you'll succeed by every measure. It doesn't mean you'll do it perfectly or even well. It means you can engage with it. You can make an attempt. You can take the next step. That's all that's being asked. And that's all that's ever being asked. So stop waiting for a future moment when you'll magically have more courage, more discipline, more capability. That moment doesn't exist. All you have is this moment, and in this moment, you're as capable as you're ever going to be. The question is simply whether you'll use that capability or spend your time wishing you had more. The liberation of simplicity, letting go of everything that isn't now. Imagine for a moment that you could let go of all your regrets about the past. Not forget them, not pretend they didn't happen, but simply stop carrying them around as weights that drag you down. All the shame, all the guilt, all the resentment, all the if-onlys, just gone, released, no longer taking up space in your mind. And imagine you could let go of all your anxiety about the future. Not stop planning or preparing, but simply stop terrorizing yourself with catastrophic projections and endless what-ifs. All the worry, all the fear, all the desperate grasping for control over things you cannot control, just gone, released, no longer consuming your energy. What would be left? Just this moment, just this breath. Just this choice. How much lighter would you feel? How much more capacity would you have to actually engage with your life, instead of spending all your energy managing the weight of past and future? This is not a fantasy. This is available to you right now. The past and future only have weight because you give it to them. The present moment is actually the natural state. It's what you return to when you stop the effortful work of dragging the past along and projecting the future forward. Children live this way naturally. Watch a young child at play. They are completely absorbed in what they're doing. They're not thinking about what happened yesterday or what might happen tomorrow. They're not worried about whether they're good enough or whether others approve of them. They're just here, now, fully engaged with the present moment. We lose this as we age. We accumulate experiences and learn to anticipate consequences. This isn't all bad. It's part of how we develop wisdom and avoid repeatedly making the same mistakes. But we go too far. We don't just learn from the past, we become imprisoned by it. We don't just plan for the future, we become paralyzed by it. The goal is not to return to the unself-conscious presence of early childhood. The goal is to develop a mature presence that incorporates learning and planning, but doesn't let them overwhelm the actuality of now. You can remember the past without dwelling in it. You can consider the future without being terrorized by it. And in between those brief consultations with memory and imagination, you can be fully present to what is actually happening. What is actually happening right now? Probably something quite ordinary. You're reading these words, you're breathing, your body is in a particular position. There are sounds around you, or silence. There might be physical sensations, comfort or discomfort, warmth or cold, hunger or satiation. There might be emotions, calm, anxiety, boredom, interest. None of this is particularly dramatic. It's just what is. And in the direct experience of it, without the layering of interpretation and judgment and story, it's manageable. It's just life. Happening moment by moment. The suffering comes from the layering. This moment is uncomfortable, and that reminds you of all the past times you've been uncomfortable, and you project forward to endless future discomfort, and suddenly this one moment of discomfort has become, I'm always uncomfortable, and I'll never be comfortable, and something is wrong with me, and my life is terrible. You've taken one small sensation and built an entire narrative of suffering around it. But if you can strip away that layering, if you can come back to just the direct experience, there is discomfort. It becomes much more bearable. You can be with discomfort. You can act despite discomfort. You can make good choices while uncomfortable. What you can't do is all of that while also carrying the weight of all past discomfort and all future discomfort simultaneously. This is why meditation practices from various traditions all involve some form of present moment awareness, whether it's focusing on the breath, repeating a mantra, or simply noting what arises in consciousness. The practice is about training yourself to be here now, without getting lost in the stories your mind tells about here and now. You don't need a formal practice to start doing this, though formal practice helps. You can start simply by noticing when your mind has wandered into past or future and gently bringing it back to present. Not with judgment, I'm so bad at this, I keep getting distracted, but with patience and matter-of-factness. The mind wandered, that's what minds do. Let me return to now. What you'll discover is that the present moment is actually quite spacious when you're not cramming it full of regret and anxiety. There's room to breathe. There's room to think clearly. There's room to choose wisely. There's room to be who you want to be. The final truth: stop beginning and simply continue. We've covered a lot of ground, but it all comes down to this. Stop thinking of your life as a series of fresh starts. Stop thinking that the solution to your problems is to finally get it right starting tomorrow. Stop waiting for the perfect moment to begin. Instead, recognize that you're already in the middle of things. You've been walking this path for your entire life. Some of your steps have been in the right direction, some haven't. Some days you've walked far, some days you've barely moved, but you're still walking, still here, still alive, still capable of taking the next step. You don't need to start over. You need to continue. You need to take whatever you've learned, whatever you've built, whatever you've survived, and keep going from here. Not from some idealized starting point where you've erased all your mistakes, but from exactly where you are. This is actually much more honest than the perpetual fresh start. It acknowledges reality. You are a person with a history. You've made certain choices that have consequences. You've developed certain habits and patterns. You cannot simply decide to be someone with a completely different history, different habits, different patterns. But you can, right now, make a different choice than the one you would have made yesterday. And that's enough. That's actually all that's required. One different choice, made now, and then another one, and then another one. Each one independent, each one valuable, each one contributing to the person you're becoming. You don't need a dramatic transformation. You don't need to wake up tomorrow as a completely different person. You need to make slightly better choices, slightly more often, and trust that over time, those choices will compound into significant change. This is the path of the practitioner rather than the path of the perfectionist. The practitioner knows they will never be perfect, so they don't waste time trying to be. Instead, they practice, they show up, they do the thing imperfectly, repeatedly, and they get gradually better at it through sheer accumulation of experience. The perfectionist needs everything to be right before they can begin. They need the perfect plan, the perfect motivation, the perfect circumstances, and since perfection never arrives, they never begin. Or they begin and immediately stop when they encounter the first imperfection, the first sign that reality doesn't match their ideal. Which would you rather be? Someone who acts imperfectly but consistently, or someone who plans perfectly but never acts? The choice is made in this moment. It's always made in this moment. There is no other time when it can be made. The past is gone, and you cannot choose there. The future hasn't arrived, and you cannot choose there. There is only now and now and now, an endless succession of present moments in which you can choose to act in accordance with who you want to be. So stop preparing to begin, stop waiting for the right moment, stop thinking that tomorrow will be different. Today is all you have, this moment is all you have. What you do with it determines everything. The challenge is not to maintain a perfect streak from this moment forward. The challenge is not to never fail again. The challenge is simply to make the best move possible right now. Just this one move. And then, when the next moment arrives, to make the best move possible then, and then again, and again. This is not glamorous, this is not the stuff of inspirational montages or dramatic transformation stories. This is just the quiet, unglamorous work of choosing well, moment by moment, day by day, knowing that most of the time no one will notice or care, knowing that you'll fail more often than you'd like, knowing that progress will be slower and messier than you imagined. But it's real, it's sustainable, it actually works, unlike the perpetual fresh start, which never works because it's built on fantasy. This works because it's built on reality. You are not waiting for a future in which you're somehow more capable than you are now. You're simply using the capability you have in the moment you're in to do what can be done. And what can be done is always enough, because it's all that can be done. You cannot do more than you can do. You cannot be other than you are, but you can choose, and you can act, and you can continue. So continue from exactly where you are, with exactly what you have, toward exactly who you want to become. Not someday, not tomorrow, now. The perpetual beginning ends here. The continuation begins now. Or rather, it has been happening all along, and you're simply choosing to recognize it. You've been on the path this whole time. Every step, even the missteps, even the steps backward, has been part of the journey. There is no starting over, because you never really stopped. You've always been continuing. So acknowledge where you are, acknowledge what you've done and what you haven't done, acknowledge your strengths and your weaknesses, acknowledge your successes and your failures, and then, from exactly this place, take the next step. That's all, that's everything. The next step, taken now, from where you are, and then another, until your last breath, when you'll take your final step, and your journey will be complete. But until then, there is only this, the present moment, the choice before you, the action available to you. Nothing else exists, nothing else matters, nothing else ever did. Stop beginning, simply continue. The life you want is not in some future moment when you finally get it right. The life you want is in this moment, and this moment, and this moment, chosen well, lived fully, experienced directly. This is all there is. This is all there ever was. This is all there ever will be. And it is enough. It has always been enough. You are enough. Now in this moment choose.